I had been born in the town of Fertile, Iowa, I would probably have 18 children by now. If I had been born in Money, Mississippi, I might be a millionaire. But I was born in Buffalo, New York, and so, by accident of birth, I'm obsessed with a certain burly, shaggy, hoofed animal. Paintings of bison hang in my house, patches and stickers with their image are on my backpack, laptop, and car, and I have a tattoo of a bison. And no, it is not the CU Buffs logo, and please stop asking me that. So 2 summers ago, I took a road trip to Boise with a friend. One of our stops was an overnight stay on Antelope Island in the middle of the Great Salt Lake. Why? Because it's home to hundreds of free-range bison. It was the weekend before the 4th of July, and the simple 60-mile drive from Salt Lake City to our campground took nearly 3 hours. When we got there, we were flustered and irritated, and we set up the tent really quickly, not paying any attention to the surroundings because we wanted to have time to get in a hike and watch the sunset over the lake. The trail we chose was, of course, named Buffalo Point. The sunset that night was stunning. The sky slowly changed from yellow to orange to a bluish gray. The low-lying hills and rock formations were reflected in the thick, salty water. A light breeze teased our skin and washed away the stress of the drive. It was the perfect summer night. Well, almost perfect. They say bison are supposed to be out and about at twilight, but by the time we finished the hike and reached the car back at the trailhead, all we had seen were birds, and not a single one of those fine creatures that I so desperately wanted to. So it was getting really dark as we drove back to the campsite, and me driving in the dark, well, you'd be safer with a blind 2-year-old driving. I can't see anything. But as we came around a hill and I noticed a solitary dark mass out in the plain, I knew exactly what I was seeing. It was a mighty, majestic bison. I stopped and we watched him. I wondered why he was so alone. Was he sick? Was he dying? Did he need help? My help? I resisted the urge to run and throw my arms around him. I may be infatuated with these beasts, but I'm not quite willing to die for the chance to snuggle with one. So after a few minutes, my friend prompted me to get going, and I did, reluctantly, but with a really big smile on my face. Now the night truly was perfect. How could it get any better? So we crested the hill that led down to our campground, an all-white rock bay spread out before us, just barely visible by that point. As I squinted into the night, trying not to miss our turn, I realized that the night did, in fact, just get better. So much better. Dozens and dozens of bison were lying down for the night, only 200 feet or so from our tent. My heart leaped into my chest. My breathing became shallow. I looked at them, and I looked at my friend, and I looked back and forth, and I said, I can't believe it. Are those really bison? And she squinted into the night, and she said, I don't know, I guess so. Well, she didn't know, but I knew. Oh, I knew they were bison. I couldn't make out any of the features, but what else could all of those dark blobs be? So I crept a little closer with the car, and then I stopped and I got out. My eyes widened and I stared unblinking at all those dark lumps scattered throughout the prairie grass. There we were, out in the wilderness, almost entirely alone among these magnificent creatures that used to roam the West by the millions. So close to these powerful animals that hold so much significance in the history of our land. Lucky enough to sleep nearly side by side with them like they were sent to protect us, to protect me. It was too much. I was emotionally overwhelmed and I started to cry. As I stood there sobbing, I heard my friend's voice. I walked over to her. I can't believe it. I just can't believe there's so many bison here for me. Jen, she said. What? I asked. Seriously? She asked. What? I asked. And then she started walking toward the bison. Stop, I hissed. What are you doing? Stop. How could she dare approach those beasts? The danger, the sacrilege. I tried a few more times to call her back, but she just ignored me. What was she thinking? What would they do to her? I stood there rooted to the ground in horror, although not entirely sure if I was more afraid for my friend or those beautiful, beautiful bison. But she went closer and closer, and then she reached the first one, and she called back to me, "They're just bushes."